Toxic masculinity.
Yeah. And which is interesting because it doesn't actually come from the feminist movement, and it doesn't even come from a female.
No.
And so can you kind of talk about that and explain why that term and the use of that term so loosely has been so dangerous in terms of like, you know, again, healthy, strong, masculine, heterosexual males, and also the nuclear family.
Yes. Two men, Caucasian white men is just what it is, coined that term, Shepard Bliss and Robert J. Stoller. One of them happens to be a homosexual. Okay, so you have a homosexual Caucasian man blanketing a statement or coining a phrase that is saying that masculinity that is enforced or pushing masculinity on a man, pushing masculinity on a boy is toxic masculinity. Okay, so no. Number one. Number two, they then use that in school books, right? So these are professors who are teaching this in school. So they did it first through education.
Yeah.
Right. Always remember the strategy. Either it goes through religion or education, which religion in most senses is education, mostly indoctrination. But the point is, it was the religion and then the schooling system. So they chose a schooling system.
Gotcha.
And they pushed that through. And of course, it became studied. And then they started to utilize it in, I believe it was plays, books, and then, of course, movies and commercials. And so it started to catch on.
Yeah.
So rather than realizing that there is a misnomer here, you cannot have toxicity in masculinity. Masculinity is the opposite of toxicity. Masculine. It's like saying divine feminine.
Yeah.
Divine feminine is of a godly nature on the side of the woman.
Right.
Masculinity is on a divine side for the man.
Yeah.
Masculinity fights against toxicity.
Yeah.
Because no, a masculine man is going to make sure the environment is safe.
Yes.
Not by just total force, but by order. Order and force are not the same.
Yeah.
Force is illogical.
Yeah.
Order is logical. A, B, C, D, E. That is how masculine men operate. That's not force, that is order, right? So I'm looking at the fact of the whole world is now using a term that was created by a gay white dude. Okay, well, yeah, because he has a bias, right? So I am a homosexual, not a heterosexual. Okay, well, why am I listening to you? It's the same thing when people say cisgender.
Yeah.
That term was created by a Caucasian woman, and that has nothing to do in science. That just came out in roughly the 80s, 90s. What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
See, these are terms people just popped up to use to denigrate and destroy the family because now you have people not reading or writing, not understanding critical thinking. So they're just saying toxic masculinity when a man is disagreeing with you.
Or disciplining.
Right? Instituting a level of order. Now, again, not force. I'm not talking about beating a child. Or now that's not masculinity. Now, that's toxicity.
Yeah.
Not toxic masculinity. That's toxicity. Why? Because you don't hear people saying toxic femininity.
Right.
So wait a minute. It's just toxicity. It's bad, period. It's horrible behavior. But don't put that in the same category with masculinity or femininity. Those are more of a sacred, specific dynamic areas.
Absolutely.
Dealing with what you see when you see a man and what you see when you see a woman.
Yeah.
That's femininity and masculinity. So they had to come up with those terms again to get people to fight each other. It's a psychological weapon. So that people, anytime again, disciplining, disagreeing, standing up for principle, toxic masculinity, the young boys crying to man, say, hey, don't man, keep your chin up. You know, don't be crying. Oh, that's toxic masculinity. Let them cry. First of all, there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah.
Just little boys crying all day everywhere is not proper. Yeah. There's a time and place. Bring order to that child. He has to know when it's safe to do that. Yeah. Why you don't just do it publicly around every single person? Because now you look weak in front of everybody, which again, some people say, well, you're supposed to see again, brother, we don't realize that we are at war.
Yeah.
So we don't have a proper way of looking at the order of things. Yes, a young man should be free to feel comfortable, to cry and open himself up to his father, to his mother, to the proper people all day long. I'm with that. Same thing with the young sisters all day long. The problem is we take the emotion and the feelings and put that above the logic, above the discipline, above the mission. Yeah. That's not how it's supposed to go. That's the opposite. Yeah. No other group of people do that. The Chinese is going to look at you like you're crazy.
Yeah. And you're supposed to have emotional intelligence.
Absolutely.
And that's what a father's definitely supposed to teach his young boys.
Yes.
Is to understand that you can express your feelings, but also understand that it's very important to understand that you have to be in a space to understand those feelings first.
Absolutely.
So you may be crying about something that's not worth crying about because I said no to you. And I said no to you because I love you.
I've seen it.
Okay, so it's just really important to kind of understand like those distinguishments, because I think we've gotten to a point where we're now coddling and enabling our children to the point where when they get out in society and society says no, they can't take it.
I'm suing everybody. It's discrimination. I'm going to record everything.
Or they don't want to get a job, or or they don't want to try.
Come on.
So it's just really important to understand that, it's not only about teaching the boy that, but it's also about teaching his little girl that as well too. And so,
toxic masculinity is a white supremacist psychological tool that is used to institute the buck breaking of men.
Yeah.
That's if you want to just get that clip, that's what that is. All right. Because it doesn't help. Yeah. Not even close. It actually generalizes all masculinity. Yeah. And it makes women who fall into it because of ignorance and they're thinking that way, it blurs the lines between what masculinity is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
So then you don't know what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
Just being agreeable doesn't mean, oh, he's masculine, he's agreeable. No, masculinity is I have to do what is right even when you believe it's wrong.
And you may not like me as a result of me doing what's right for you.
Yes.
And I think it's also important to kind of, say as well, like at the end of the day, there's a difference between masculinity and boy psychology.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
And a lot of times what they're trying to address is boy psychology. Mm-hmm. And I think they confuse it for saying, all right, this is toxic masculinity, but it's really boy psychology. So wrapping up, now that the pandemic, which is ended, air quotes, 2 years ago, mm-hmm. and I look at where we are right now, you see the dollar crashing. Mm-hmm. Inflation is realistically around 20%. Even they're saying like 5 to 7. It's really around 20%. Everything is more expensive now. Absolutely. Interest rates and real estate prices are through the roof. People can't afford homes. Mm-hmm. Other countries are removing themselves from the dollar. Mm-hmm. You see the U.S., China, and Russia. It looks like they can go at it any day now.
That's a fact.
And then you think about the fact that recently, now you have this new draft mandate for young men between the ages of 18 to 26 that just got implemented. Most people don't know about it.
That's a fact.
And you start to think about America is printing money as if they're like Cash Money Records taking over for the 99 and the 2000s. What do you think is about to happen, and how should we start preparing ourselves? Because something is about to happen.
Absolutely. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that at a certain point, that bubble will burst. Mm-hmm. Dealing with inflation, dealing with the national debt. According to the U.S. debt clock, if you look at it, in New York, it says that we are currently over $33 trillion in debt.
Yep.
Okay, that's what they say.
Yep.
Right? They don't add in Medi-Cal, Medicaid, all the other money that they owe, because in reality or realistically, we're well over $60 trillion in debt. As you brought up, the fact is BRICS is a real thing.
Yeah.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They have now added the United Arab Emirates. They have now added Saudi Arabia. They have now added a lot of other nations, and more nations are pouring in to apply to be a part of BRICS nations. China and Russia have come together. They are now exchanging economically. They are replacing the U.S. dollar. This is a very real thing that we have never seen happen. And that's why we don't think it's possible, and we don't know how to respond, because we've never experienced this before. Yeah. In our generation, any generation within the last 200, 300, 400 years, we don't even know that it's a real thing. We still think it's a video game, it's a movie, because we've been so numb to it. We're like, oh, cool. Let me go down the street and use my dollar.
Yeah.
There will be a point, and it is happening now. In Nigeria, as a matter of fact, they tried to go to the bank to take money out, and they said, we don't have any money.
Yep.
People who had Bitcoin in certain nations tried to get it out in U.S. dollars. They said, we can't give you that. Certain nations are now not even accepting U.S. dollars. Like, it is a real thing, brother. This is why people who are trying to just say, well, the U.S. will always have money, always be the number one currency on the planet. There's, at one point, you got to stop. You have to be honest about your failing nation. Because it's not even yours to begin with, right? Yeah. So you got to be honest about that too. It's like, you got to stop with this nonsense. So the preparation, number one, that we have been taught to do, Number one is get back to, again, Almighty God, Allah, the Most High, whatever you call the name for the supreme being. Get back to that. Get back to righteous conduct and behavior, right? Get back to what you know is right, all right? The stuff that you knew, just get back to it. Number one. Number two, get your family back together.
Yeah.
Number three, work on the financial ways to become stable. Whatever job you have right now, yes, you want to look at physical gold. I would specifically recommend gold coins, silver coins. Those do exist. They're a real thing. You are going to need those. If you do Bitcoin, that's up to you. I'm not going to advocate that, but a lot of people use that. Hey, that's an option if you choose that. Another thing is you want to look at your emergency home care. You want to make sure you have your water stocked up. You want to have your first aid kit stocked up. You want to have at least, specifically, 300 gallons of useful spring water at home.
Gotcha.
Because it's for cleaning, it's for sanitation, it's for, bathing, and it's for food. You have to have all this stuff together because the reality is you don't know, I don't know, we don't know when things are going to crash or fall down because it's really happening. There are people right now in parts of California where the banks fell down. There were multiple banks.
Yep.
And they were trying to get money out. They couldn't get out. A large bank in China just collapsed.
Yep.
They couldn't get money. I mean, this is happening, y'all. So don't think that just because it's not happening right now in your city, that it's not happening. It is.
Yeah.
And the U.S. government knows that. So just be prepared for whatever, whenever, but take things serious. Again, don't get into a mentality of, oh my God, everything is just horrible. No, you just want to be prepared.
Prepared.
That's all. You want to be prepared. Make sure you got your food and all that together. And again, get with like-minded people who you know are useful, who you can build with. Even if you live in the projects, get with the people who you know how to cook, know how to take care of children, know how to fight. All that you want to have your things together.
Yes.
And be practical about it. Don't think that it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. Yep. So just, get yourself prepared.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. My belief is Babylon is a beast.
Yes.
And I believe just like every dying beast, they're the most dangerous when they're wounded.
Yes.
And I think what you're seeing is a wounded beast.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be hurtful to a lot of people out there because I know there's a lot of Cowboys fans, but they're the perfect example.
Oh,
America
man.
is like the Cowboys. People love to root for them because they won for so long.
Mm.
And even though you can see it is not a healthy relationship to be a fan of this team that's going to let you down at some point.
Right.
I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a wounded beast who is dying, and we need to figure out what we're going to do as individuals and as families and as a community in terms of like how we respond to it. But I also believe that the entire world is flooding with divine light.
Yep.
And so with that light is just shining brightly on dark spaces.
It's our opportunity.
And as a result of that, as you are seeing all these new things come to light, these people that we idolize, all of a sudden they shouldn't be idolized anymore because they do this type of activity. We're starting to see like, oh, they're not as strong as we thought we were as a country anymore. Everything is just being revealed. And as we start to see these things become revealed, we have to go inward and go back to nature and go back to our divine space. So
that's a fact.
Last question. If you could heal our people, how would you do it?
First thing I would do, well, I guess if it's the only thing I could do, I would encourage them to realize that they have everything they need.
Yes.
If they would only make the decision to apply it.